Here we go for another Tuesday Night Live, following our lacklustre win over the Gold Coast on the weekend. Joining me tonight, we have Macca23. How you going, Macca?
Very well, thank you. Good evening, all.
And a welcome return to the Tuesday Night Live panel. We have Danos. How you going, mate?
I'm good, thanks. How are you, Phoenix?
Oh, pretty good for an old fella. And, look who happened to turn up. Nikki. How you going, Nikki?
Hello. Just got in from training.
Oh, I just got in from training. Come on now.
Nice excuse, Nikki.
No, seriously, I just got in the door.
Yeah, I'd say that too.
do you even
Tuesday
train?
night's my training night. Yes, I do.
What do you?
Yes, I train.
What, a few laps or a couple of?
No. We had drills. We were doing drills with some of the guys tonight.
Yeah, but what about training?
Say no more, Nikki.
You got.
Yes.
Having drills with the boys.
The mind boggles, yeah.
What else do you call them? They're football drills.
I'm
not the one whose mind is in the gutter.
A little bit higher than that.
Yeah. Oh, Macca, come on.
No, Phoenix is fully in the gutter. We know that.
No, okay. I'm actually not. I'm not falling in the gutter. I reside there, Nikki. You know that as well as I do.
No, I said fully.
Oh, fully. Yeah, fully.
Yes.
Exactly. Well, I'm sure the Crabs boys enjoyed having, what are you again, the Dolphins or something?
Stingrays,
that's it. I keep forgetting.
Hey, feel the sting.
Why not the Mermaids? Seriously, why wouldn't you call yourself the Mermaids? Because you're females.
Well, actually, there are female stingrays too.
Yeah.
It was probably a female stingray
Yes.
that did bloody Irwin in. Spiteful bloody thing it was.
No. Right bloody thing to do.
He just gave it a little jab.
Oh, what do you mean?
Anyway.
Yes.
I'm
sorry, I actually when that happened, I work with a marine biologist, and when we heard about it, the first thing their response was, how long had he been annoying it?
Long enough, as it turns out. Vardy reckons Mermaids Guernsey would be interesting. You'd probably be good in the wet, I'd say. And
bloody rained on Sunday. I wasn't happy with that.
No double meaning intended there either. But anyway, let's get to the footy, shall we? We had rather a weird game on Saturday, didn't we? Saturday it was, wasn't it? Seems so long ago. And obviously we covered it in detail on Sunday night, but we'll have a bit of chat with that. We'll also talk about the news around the place. In particular, I'd imagine, Nikki, you'll have a take on Mr. Jonas. And
what did he get?
He got 6.
Good.
He got 6. We'll talk about it in a minute, but probably about right. And then obviously we'll talk about the Giants game coming up on the weekend, which should be a bit of a blockbuster. So, without any further ado, Nikki, if you've got the ice pack on and,
No, I haven't even had time to grab that.
Oh, go and grab a bag of peas or something. Where does it hurt, by the way, if you're having a few drills?
Me? Oh, hamstrings.
Okay, no.
Hey, you asked.
You should call yourself the Cowgirls, I guess. But anyway, let's move on. Nikki, what news have we got around the place?
Well, obviously there's the Jonas bits and pieces that's happened there, but I actually want to give some kudos to the Kangaroos for how they dealt with Kane Turner. And if you contrast that with the wet slap punishment that Cracker got, I quite like the fact that, if you haven't heard, the Kangaroos will give Kane Turner a 4-week suspension, but that will only start from when he's now going to become available.
So about 7 weeks, right? All up?
Yeah, I think so. And And to me, that's actually such a great, strong message that they're given. Port tried to tell us that they were strong, but really the first chance they got to bring Cracker back in, they brought him back in.
Can you say that again? Cracker Brack?
Cracker back in.
Is that one of your drills you did?
You can imagine the glare I'm making right now.
Sorry, push on.
So, yes. You keep this up, I'm not going to say anything. It's got a very short news section.
That was legit. That was legitimate. Keep going. Don't stop.
I know you did to me then, the inadvertent. But I actually think that the way the Kangaroos actually got in the front foot about it, immediately said this is just unacceptable. We're going to, wait a little bit and then we'll let you know how we're going to deal with this. And then they came out again quite strongly about it. So I actually think that the Kangaroos actually deserve some kudos for the way that they've actually handled this very well.
What do you think that they would have done if it was Azeeble or Cunnington or Swallow who had done it and not Kane Turner?
Great point, Danos.
I would actually hope that they would do the same thing.
Well, that's what we would hope. But would Hawthorn have treated Luke Hodge differently to Brad Hill? Well,
we know they don't.
We know they do treat them differently.
Yeah, we know they definitely treat him a lot differently, particularly when there's a game on the line. Turner's actually been in the side, and he's not one of the stars, but he's a decent player, and he's one of the young ones that's coming through. So, and they're the players you actually want to get games into. So you don't want to have them 7 weeks out.
No, but is much more expendable than one of the top liners.
Yeah, I agree with that because that's about as much excitement as if somebody said Van Burlo was unavailable.
Oh, please.
No. Henderson.
Either
then
or.
we'd all be having a party.
We'd
all be having a party.
I give you Nicky, you're right.
I think you are correct that they wouldn't have been as strong, but you would hope that there would be something adequate. So they probably would have, if we're playing devil's advocate, I reckon they might have halved it. For me, in a way, if it's actually a senior player that's done that, it's actually even worse. Because a younger player,
it is.
you can understand them making a stupid mistake, but your senior player, those that are in the leadership group, you expect them not to behave this way because they're the ones setting the standards. If they're the ones that are breaking those standards, the punishment should be greater.
Yeah,
but it doesn't seem to work that way.
Yeah, but
I agree, it doesn't seem to work that way.
No, I've got to say, from time immemorial, though, every club is like that. And it's like in our club, if Rory Sloane did something that, and he's a great leader, and compared to one of the juniors, he's not going to get billed the same.
No, it's an interesting people management conversation because I guess there's a lot of parallels in day-to-day employment life. A senior manager is probably less likely to be smacked as hard as a junior simply because they're more integral to the operation of the business. And there's probably a fair argument to say that that's reasonable. But so whether I think it was Mick Malthouse used to advocate for different treatment for different levels of players, and I don't necessarily disagree with that, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I think you also need to take into account what the punishment is actually, how it's actually going to work for that player, because people are different. So somebody you have to give a longer punishment for because they're not going to quite get it through their heads, whereas other ones, if you give them a single one, it's going to stick a bit better. So it does come down to that balance, as you said, that people management. And I agree with you, Phoenix, and with Malthouse, is that you do have to look at the individuals in terms of how you deal with it. And it's also the circumstances of what actually happened.
I think this is probably a good segue to the Jonas conversation as well. Nikki, you may not be aware, but they Port Adelaide didn't send anyone over to Melbourne for the hearing. Jonas appeared by video link. And apparently their defence, let me see if I can get this right. The defence was based on the charge being too high, and the charge should have been downgraded. So instead of giving any or putting any defence towards what he did, they just said he should be charged based on this instead, and just put him on a video.
Yeah, they tried to.
If it was Travis Boak, do you think they would have done the same thing? Do you think they would have gone a little bit harder?
Well, they need Jonas. He's as Kane Corn said, he's the only one who's actually playing the Port Adelaide way. Sorry, that was a snipe.
Dave Granger way.
Was it? Yeah. I did see the evidence that was presented. It's when I had to go to training was when they'd just gone off to deliberate. And looking at that evidence that was being presented, I was just shaking my head the whole time everything was coming out. And he was saying, I was scared for my own safety. And I think I actually put it in the thread. Well, if you're scared for your own safety, stop running, dodge the guy, don't lift your elbow. It was just ridiculous from what I could see that what they were trying to do to argue that it was careless and not intentional. And I just see that they got him as intentional.
Actually undermined everything that they were saying leading up to the case being heard. I mean, the contrite press conference, etc., and then to turn around and say, well, we actually think it should be rated as careless rather than intentional. And, really, it was only in the last two strides that I realised I wasn't going to make the quote-unquote contest. It was no contest. From going from remorse to, it was just a touch more than a football incident is quite hypocritical but quite typical of Port Adelaide at the moment. I reckon 6C was probably about right in the end.
Well, because there was no early discount, because he challenged the intent. So the standard was, I think the standard is around the 6. And initially when I saw it, that's what I thought. That's what I would have found acceptable.
Yeah, but Nicky, he would have only got one match less if he just pleaded plain guilty to the charge. Once he was disputing the charge, that one game off for pleading guilty disappears. So even if they were going to give him 6, he would have got away with 5. But and I agree with the boys on 5AA. He was very, very poorly advised, very, very poorly advised because, in fact, the bloke who was prosecuting the case for the AFL actually called him a liar, straight out a liar, because the evidence he was giving did not match the video at all.
So,
it didn't.
He actually came back afterwards, Gleeson, and qualified that statement by saying he didn't feel that Jonas was lying. He felt that I forget the exact terminology, but it was basically...
Honest reconstruction.
Honest reconstruction of events, which is a nice way of saying he's lying through his frickin' teeth. But anyway...
I don't think they were the words he originally used. That was the words.
No, not originally.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and so I mean, he obviously thought he probably was a little bit strong with the way he expressed it when they was actually pressing the case against him. But the whole point was, if you look at the video, you can see, and that brings another question in my mind. It's Graham Corn's gone round the bend. He was trying to say that he was trying to say
that happened years ago.
Yeah, he was trying to say that, he's got a case to argue. He was defending himself. My God, the man is mad.
Actually, I want to throw an absolute brick back at the Adelaide media because I remember getting in the car after work on Monday. I turned it on. It's on Triple M, and they're about to interview Hamish Hartlett, and they immediately start talking about Jonas with Hamish Hartlett. Oh, what a good bloke he is. He isn't a thug. Oh, he felt so bad. All this other stuff. I'm sorry. You can still be a thug and a good bloke because in that moment with what he did, that was a thuggish act. And I don't think anybody can actually really, really defend that.
Well, equivalent to a coward punch, really.
Yeah.
nothing more than
and
a
the
cow
fact
punch.
that the Adelaide media, so 5AA, everybody else was actually backing him in, saying, "Oh, he's such a good bloke, though he didn't mean to do it." Well, he did it, and if you do something like that, you have to face the consequences. Yes, he can feel remorse, and that means he's actually human and understands that he's done something wrong. But in the heat of the moment, he did it.
Yeah, and Nicky, if he did that out in the public life, he'd be up in the courts.
Oh, definitely. I was in the kitchen when it was happening, and all of a sudden I've glanced up and hear this thing, and there's this melee going on, and so I run back around, wound it back to see actually what happened, and watching that actually happen live, that elbow went up so early, and my immediate thought was, that's 6 weeks straight away.
Well, you gave a brickbat to the Adelaide media, but there was one photograph posted used on the front page.
That was good.
And that pretty much summed it up. Eyes on gaff, elbow raised, still, 2-3 steps away. That was pretty damning. So, good on the Sunday Mail, I guess, for putting that up. It was a pretty telling picture. Look, I think,
wonder whether Port got in touch with the media to kind of put some pressure on, if you want Port players to do your recap, etc., go softly.
Yeah, and you know what?
Because that's what I felt.
This is a bit of thing that's crept into the Adelaide media, and, whether we like it or not, we're actually we're part of the Adelaide media with the amount of listeners we're getting at the moment. But the manipulation of the media in Adelaide by the clubs and vice versa leaves precious little room for objective comment, and I think that's why so many people are switching off mainstream media in South Australia in particular, because it's so canned and it's so couched towards ongoing relationships with the clubs and whatnot. I can't remember the last time anyone, probably Treadray's the only one that seems to be relatively objective. But some of the pandering that goes on, and you're right with Jonas this week over the last couple of days, the pandering that's been going on AA and other outlets, it's pointless listening to it. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, and that's why I've stopped listening to them, and why I do things like this.
Yeah, but I like listening to them, and the reason I like listening to them, Bickley in particular, comes out with some pretty interesting stuff at times, and he's a pretty well informed bloke, Bickley, and occasionally he lets a little bit slip.
Yeah, but you'd think he's informed. He got it particularly wrong with Danger last year, so you just wonder how much he's being fed. I mean, I know he runs the Crow Show, which is essentially just a Crows-produced television show. But I think that they would treat him pretty much the same as any other media commentator. They would feed him what they want to feed him, and occasionally he might get a bit of an inkling due to his associations, but I don't think he's any more or less informed than anyone else, really.
He's more informed than bloody Rowie.
That's not hard.
My coffee mug here is more informed than Rowie, for God's sakes.
And more intelligent.
It's a pretty dumb mug, but...
See, the thing is, Rowie, I think, is an act, and he's kind of encouraged to be that act. And when he actually kind of calms down and he starts talking a bit less of that act, and starts discussing things, you actually get some good things out of Rowie. But I think, unfortunately, the radio's kind of turned into that clickbait. That's what they're after. They're after the sensationalism. They're after people ringing up and getting angry with them. And most of the time, I don't think what he says, he actually really agrees with what he's saying.
I don't know if he's that. Is he smart enough for that, Nicky?
Well, he's done, if you actually think, he's had quite a decent kind of coaching career. And this day and age, you don't kind of coach at that level that he has been without having some intelligence about the game.
Hang on. You could say that about Andrew Jarman too, and he's a toss.
I agree.
No. He's coaching Gaza.
Yeah, I know, but he's
Rowy's
coached
actually
North
coached
and...
in SA the first time.
No, Andrew Jarman's coached North and bloody West Perth or whoever it was.
He has.
Got a premiership with West Perth, didn't he?
Oh, not sure about that. I know at one stage in his coaching career in West Perth, he actually started all 18 players in defence. That's something only Andrew Jarman could do.
Square.
But, you know, I mean...
It's definitely outside the square.
No, was that him or was that Hocking from Port Adelaide?
No. That was A. Jarman, I think.
Well, Hocking definitely did that some years back.
Yeah, I think that was in a VFL or a country game, Macca. I do recall that as well. But I know Jars did something similar in Western Australia.
Couple of Einsteins then.
Yeah, they didn't get his particular style over in WA. I don't think.
I don't think many people get his particular style.
So, Nikki, I've been hearing a little bit on SEN over the last few days. There's starting to become a little bit of a discussion about the woes of Gold Coast, and in particular, the debate that's gaining some momentum regarding what they should do with Gary Ablett.
Yeah.
There's a school of thought that they should trade him.
Well, I don't think he should be captain. And I never thought he should be captain. He just is the wrong personality. And I always thought that. This is a debate we've kind of often had on the board, and I have to agree with the general consensus that's happened on there, which is Gold Coast is just the wrong place to put young men with a lot of money.
Well, Gary's not young. He's 31.
No, but he is not the type of personality like a Tex.
No, look, he definitely should have been the captain. I think was a very poor choice. He would have achieved a lot more if he was just allowed to run free, I think.
You could have him in the leadership group. No problem with that.
I agree with that. But as for what they should do in the future, it's I really don't know I've got mixed feelings on it. You know, common sense says, well, they're not going to win a flag for a long, long time. So maybe if you can get a couple of decent picks for him or a couple of young players, well, then you should do it. I think that's the common sense approach. The emotional approach says, well, you know, he committed himself up there for 18 years. He's prepared to go on. It seems like a bit of a dog act to do that to him. But I think when it comes down to the crunch, it's every man for himself. It's every football club for themselves. And I would trade him.
I don't think he's worth that much, though, is he, Macca?
Oh, his trade value's definitely gone down. There's no argument about that.
He wouldn't get a first rounder. The trouble is for the Gold Coast, I think that they'd have to pay out part of his salary the following year. So there'd probably be, $500,000 on their TPP. I put the question to you guys, though, from a purely Adelaide perspective. How do you reckon he'd go in our midfield?
He'd get a kick.
I think our... Go on, Daniels.
I think he'd probably get a game. I don't know what specifically he'd add, though. We've got a pretty weak midfield this year.
Oh, no, he'd be very good at that outside seagull type.
He'd add a touch of class to our midfield of workhorses, in my view.
When he gets on the track.
And would we be willing to pay what Gold Coast would be asking for?
I think teams will only take him on if Gold Coast are playing the majority of that salary.
At least 50%.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
50%.
I like... people kind of forget this, but when we took Tambling, we actually were paying him a very minimal amount. Pretty much Richmond was almost subsidising the fact that he was on our list.
Mm.
So they should have, we took a day.
But if you...
He kicked a nice goal in his last game.
If you had Gaz at 450,000 and had to give up a second rounder for him, it's not the worst trade you'd have to do.
I would do that.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams would do that.
A lot of talk also about Prestia and O'Meara, obviously up there wanting out.
I want
Prestia in
Prestia.
particular.
As
you guys know, I want Prestia. Yes, please. In my football team.
Yeah, he's very good, Prestia. He can earn his own ball too.
Yeah, he's every time everybody started talking about the Gold Coast, the midfield, and the young ones coming through, and everybody talked up O'Meara, I was the one who always going, no, Prestia is the one I want. O'Meara, yeah, he's flash, but Prestia is the one who gets it to him, and Prestia is the one who can also do a bit of the flash as well. That he's just got such class, and he knows how to find the ball so well, and he's tough at it. Whereas O'Meara, to me, I always saw more as the outside player.
He's a Rolls Royce. Prestia is your Land Rover. He'll go in and get the hard nut, but he'll also go forever and pick you up 40 touches. O'Meara will just be all class and all silk. I'd take Prestia in a heartbeat. I've been a rat for him for ages. It's a sad state of affairs, though, for both the Queensland clubs that they cannot keep their Melbourne-based players or their players that drafted from interstate. You take Ablett. Consider that Ablett goes somewhere, maybe even back to Geelong, for that matter, and O'Meara and Prestia leave as well in the off-season. That club is, as some pundits are saying, already in rebuild mode after being in the competition for 5 years.
Yeah, but I think Geelong have already come out and said they wouldn't be interested in taking Ablett back.
Yeah, irrespective though. I mean, both Brisbane clubs or both Queensland clubs being effectively in rebuild mode. Brisbane with a questionable coaching situation, and Gold Coast basically having been proven to take completely the wrong strategy into their implementation, and now with a chairman who was excellent for V8s. he's had a bit of a rough start in AFL. He doesn't mind saying a few things, but I don't know. Football's a bit rough in Queensland at the moment.
I don't think he achieved very much by bagging the previous coach, the way he did.
Yeah, you don't really do that. I agree. That just makes you look bad.
Yeah, look, it adds nothing to the morale of the club either, I don't think. It says, it really just says we're a bit of a shitbag of a club and it's his fault.
I reckon they should merge Brisbane and Gold Coast and give Tassie a team.
Wow. I mean, that's what should happen, Dan. I don't disagree with you, but do you reckon they ever would?
They won't do it.
No, they won't.
Never, ever going to give Tasmania a team.
Well, they won't do it because they said they want to have at least 2 teams in every state.
It makes you wonder, though. I mean, that whole strategy of expansion has largely been driven by media. I mean, there's a case to be made for, Queensland and New South Wales being the most populous of the non-football states, and therefore it makes sense to have a presence there. But the media wanted the 9 games a week. But you have to wonder how much value they're getting out of those extra 1 or 2 games a week that they're getting, or the extra 1 game that they're getting with the inclusion of teams like Gold Coast. We're starting to see teams or the competition influenced very much by injuries. You start getting a few injuries and there's just not the depth in lists anymore for clubs to be able to cover that after about 2 or 3, key injuries. They actually put up a graphic on one of the footy shows of the Gold Coast team. There's actually only 4... no. Was it Gold Coast or was it Fremantle? No, it was Fremantle. They put up a graphic of Fremantle's team, and there's only 4 omissions from last year's, trailblazing team, and 4 that have just not been selected. But just 4 forced omissions. The team actually isn't all that much different to what it was last year, and yet here they are sitting at the bottom without a win.
Yeah, no, it's a very, very good, very good point. And you're quite right that the introduction of the next 2 teams, and they had something between them about 100 players on their list, and then there wasn't another 100 players around of good AFL calibre to really fill those teams.
Well, they actually took those good young players and it left all the rest of the teams to top up with players that normally wouldn't have a chance at being on an AFL list because they're not quite there. And that was said at the time when they came in, that the talent pool just isn't there to support these teams, but the AFL pushed ahead with it. You have to give kudos, though, to GWS for the way they went about it, in that they got the right senior players in to complement the younger players coming through, and they picked the better younger players. Gold Coast kind of went for the flash. GWS took the longer view, and it's paying dividends.
Yeah, look, that's true, and the AFL is really in the process. What they should have done at the time is they should have said to North Melbourne, "You are going there, and we're not going to finance you anymore. And if you don't go there, we'll let you go down the tube." And stay with the 16 teams. What they've done now is they've got one very weak team in the Gold Coast, and it's going to take them umpteen years to get anywhere, in my opinion. And in GWS, they've got the reverse. They've created a monster.
And you can also look at it with what's happened here. Can Adelaide actually support two teams? If you think of how many times Port Adelaide has had to be bailed out, the fact that the smallest, where it starts to go wrong for them, and they've had those drop-offs in the numbers, and they're not getting the money coming in. I mean, if we can't really support two teams without one of them having to kind of ask for handouts every so often, how's that going to cope in a place that actually has maybe a less population interested in the actual sport?
Nikki, wash your mouth out. Rucci told us they've got the greatest following in the state now.
Sure, they do.
Yeah, that's because they've got 30,000 genuine members and 30,000 cats and dogs.
Yeah. Internally, they know they don't.
I know.
Internally, they internally at that club, they wish they had the Crows members, and they had 11-seat members.
Yeah, I'm actually having a shot at Rucci here, actually.
He's probably listening too.
That's just too easy.
The thing of it is, though, I mean, it's one thing to say they've got too many teams in Brisbane or in Queensland, but again, if you went through and did the rationalisation in Victoria that should have always occurred, then you're also solving the talent pool problem while still maintaining a good, meaningful presence in the expansion states. And it comes back down to 10 teams in Melbourne is too many, and that's never going to change. And we're getting all these contrived things now. There's whispers about mid-year drafts, and there's the issues with the academies and whatnot. And the more spokes you put in the wheel of equalisation, you've got the cap, you've got the draft, you've got possible priority picks, you've got academies now, you've got all sorts of things like this. You've got caps on footy department spends, etc., etc. That's a balancing act that Houdini couldn't maintain, and I think the competition's going to go through some rocky times over the next 5 years.
Well, I certainly don't think that they can maintain. At the moment, they're getting a very large amount from the TV rights, and they've probably got one more. Well, in fact, they've got a very good deal coming up for the next lot. But I would be very fearful about the lot after that.
Yeah, if the standard keeps dropping off in some teams, and you like what you're getting, if you're getting a season with Fremantle happening for a Melbourne team. That won't end well.
No. There's a lot of variables, I think, to come into play, and we could probably go on for ages, but maybe a topic to be further discussed next week. Let's push on and have a quick chat about the Gold Coast game itself on the weekend. Whilst we cover it in detail on Sunday night, we've got...
you mean the Giants game?
No. Just a quick recap of last week. I know we did it on Sunday night, but
Sorry.
whispers from the club post-match seem to indicate there's not going to be a huge amount of changes. So selection on Thursday night's going to be interesting.
Yeah, hopefully Brown pulls up well from his ankle.
Yeah, very
It'll be
important
interesting to see if
player.
Laird's available.
Wasn't it reported that Laird had a fracture?
Yeah, that's why he's missed 3 weeks.
Yeah, he did have a fracture, yeah.
But it wasn't initially diagnosed as a fracture, was it?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, well.
No.
Broken toe, wasn't it?
Broken toe.
It was a stub toe originally, and then it became a fracture.
It was a stub toe on the day, and then they went for scans on the Monday, and then they said it's a broken toe.
Okay.
He'll be up for 3 weeks.
Correct.
So
we didn't play funny buggers about that.
Yeah, he'll be up for a test. I'd say Brownie will be up for a test. You'd say Lairdy
was
passes.
running last week.
If he passes, he's in, you'd imagine. And God,
hopefully
let's
for
hope
Hendo.
it's Henderson. Jesus.
Yes, please.
But aside from that, I don't see any motivation to change our midfield structure to any great degree. So it looks like more of the same in that regard.
Well, Pikey was on the radio and he was talking about the midfield, and he was in particular, without giving anything away one way or the other, about the pickle they've got themselves into with Brad Crouch by bringing him in prematurely, then dropping him, and he again performed in the SAFL as we all expected that he would, and then they haven't got a game this week. So, and then our bye's coming up quite shortly too. So it hasn't been very well planned, or certainly hasn't gone to a plan if they did have one. So my question is, what would you do this week?
Well, it's disappointing that they did drop him for the Suns, because the Suns even played Van Berlo into some form. You'd think that VB is holding Crouch's spot warm until they can get Crouch back in. That's Matt Crouch, I mean. Laird will come back in for Henderson, and then it's a matter of Lyons or Brad Crouch, in my opinion.
Well, long term, we know who the better player is.
Yeah. Yep. Pardon me. I don't know what the answer is. I wouldn't mind betting if Miller keeps having quiet games, then he may end up being the guy that makes way for B Crouch at some stage. But I don't think it'll be this week. I don't think we'll see Brad Crouch for another month.
Miller didn't have a quiet game.
He flashed in and out.
Got 3 goals.
Is a pretty decent return, though.
Yeah, he had 12 possessions for the game.
In that forward line.
12 posies against a Neefel team. I'd probably judge his effort against Geelong a little bit more. But it comes back down to, I think we get more value from having the 2 Crouch boys and Lions in the team than having either 2 of either Matt Crouch, Brad Crouch and Jared Lyons, really.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree too.
So in that case, the only bloke that comes out is Miller, unfortunately.
Interestingly, I know we were kind of scathing a bit on how disappointed we were with Douglas, and yet Seedsman in the talking with Triple M, he was talking up Douglas and how well he played the midfield, and I'm listening to this going, really? Okay, so obviously there's things internally that the club are looking for him to do and they're happy with. We're not seeing it yet.
Well, he has been used very much in a negating role.
Absolutely, Macca.
And normally I've stuck up for him because I've noticed that, but I thought he was released a bit more because he wasn't really playing that much of a negating role on the weekend. And so that's why I was disappointed.
It seemed that Sloan and Prestia were hard up against each other, and there was nobody else really who they could tag, apart from maybe Riscatelli.
Prestia was running with Thompson as well. So if Sloan was tagging Prestia and Prestia was tagging Thompson.
I think Prestia would have been on Tomo during the stoppages, but after that it would have been pointless staying on Tomo. He didn't move anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I don't know. We've got some real issues in the midfield as being spoken. I just wonder if the internal measures are so intricate that the keen observer can't see what the hell is going on. To me, footy isn't a very complicated game in that regard, and I just wonder what they're seeing that we're not seeing that is so important.
Well, as Bloody Magic's pointed out on the Spreaker chat, the game high pressure acts was with Douglas, so perhaps it was more negating.
And the response I made to that is when you're watching it on the telly, the camera work doesn't help us to make a value judgment, really.
Yeah, because you don't see that.
Because you miss a lot. And damp squid. Why can't they zoom out more? Annoys the shit out of me. Annoys the shit out of me too.
The thing is, though, Nick, with the camera angles, and I agree, it doesn't help with the larger picture game plan analysis, but you certainly get a pretty good view of what's going on in the midfield, which is where all our problems are. And I see our senior blokes not running, and that's centre camera, so that's pretty hard to miss that one.
Yeah, the coach summed it up pretty well. He said that we went and definitely was right. We went back to our old ways of all being sucked into the contest and nobody staying outside the contest.
Yeah, well, it's disappointing that they fall back into that style after, not only this pre-season, but while she was trying to coach that Adam as well last year.
So remember we kind of discussed on Sunday night that we thought Pikey might have been playing around a little bit because we had a weaker opposition.
Well, certainly.
And did he maybe let them go to see how they were going to react in certain situations?
Well, he said they did. It's funny because he made that particular comment, but he also said they did what they were asked to do.
You can do both sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not convincing me at the moment, guys, to be honest with you. What I'm seeing with my own eyes doesn't compute to a team that's going about it the way they were even in the first 2-3 weeks. I mean, we look to be a different team now after a couple of close losses, and I think our confidence is a little shot. Certainly it seems that way in terms of our ball movement. We're far less adventurous and aggressive with our ball movement than we were earlier in the season.
During the losses, we did lose our ability to be able to run through the middle, and there was definitely a concerted effort to get them all run through the middle of the ground on Saturday. And a lot of it seemed quite forced, like they were consciously thinking this is what we need to do, as opposed to this is happening automatically.
Yeah, I noticed that too, Daniels, that they were instructed to go back inside as much as possible, and they would ignore the outside option to try and manufacture something through the corridor. And you're right, it didn't look free flowing and natural, and it begs the question again: where's all the run gone?
Yeah, considering Cameron was probably our best run through player on Saturday, and he wasn't around in the first couple of weeks. The team hasn't changed that much. We haven't lost any of our outside players apart from McKay, who should be back in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, but there have been some changes. I mean, we lost Laird in the back line to almost 100% accuracy with his disposal, which puts the ball in hands of the right player to do the right thing. And I think, and Hendo's got this bit of a habit that he likes to kick long, and he kicks to a contest, which tends to take away the ability to keep possession and run right through the middle as easy as we would like to do. So, I mean, I think that's a very important thing. I noticed that Van Berlo in particular, he tried to do some of the accurate kicking, and most of the time he wasn't too bad, but, he missed a few times as well. But I think also Douglas was also providing a little bit of run as well. So there has been definitely a lot of run. and I think there are reasons for it.
Certainly using Jacobs a lot as a link person, I've noticed, as that hit-up target, short, sort of, inside the corridor with those diagonal kicks. What we don't want to see is what blokes like Henderson does and Van Berlo when they're on half-back, and that's go that slow backward switch.
No. Henderson doesn't do that. Henderson just stands there with the ball and allows all the defenders to actually get onto our players who've run free.
Yeah, and then he does a slow switch or he does a stupid kick down the line. I don't know. I think against the Gold Coast, I think our defence actually pushed up a little bit too high, or certainly too high to allow us to get a lot of rebound off halfback. It wasn't that kind of game, really. But we seem to be struggling when teams crowd the corridor and crowd the centre third of the ground. And I don't doubt that we'll have that sort of a problem again this weekend. And that probably leads us on to a quick discussion. We've got about 10 minutes to go. So a quick discussion about the Giants game coming up. What are your initial thoughts, Danos?
It'll be interesting to see whether we've got some sort of plan to negate Heath Shaw. He had 36 kicks or something against the Bulldogs at 100% kicking.
Just unbelievable.
There needs to be some pressure on him. To let him go like that was just, I don't even.
No, that's amazing. You'd think Charlie Cameron would be the one there to apply a bit of defensive pressure out of the forward line.
And interestingly, watching that, I caught the end of that game, and there was a bit where Heath Shaw and I think there was, I'm trying to remember who the other GWS player were running it through the middle. Stringer was kind of jogging along behind them, and I'm just watching him going, aren't you supposed to be quick, mate? Shouldn't you be, chasing? Just the lack of defensive pressure from the Bulldogs, to me, it's going to be quite interesting because I don't think the Bulldogs' game plan works on an oval that's large. And so I think last week's game, with how well GWS played, I think you also need to consider that they were playing against a team that has a game plan that doesn't work on that style of oval.
Yeah, but I did watch that game, and the thing that really stood out for me is that the rest of the GWS backline presses up pretty high, and Shaw drops back a kick behind the play, and he wasn't being minded. They pay a spare man in defence, and he was a spare man in defence, and he just controlled the whole game from there. Even if they were on the centre wing, they'd go back to him, and then he'd pick his best option, and his kicking was excellent. But we have to, in my opinion, we can beat them if we put a dedicated player on him, and our player acts as if he was the backman and Shaw was the forward.
Yeah, that good old-fashioned defensive forward that went out of vogue a couple of years ago. We need to borrow Matty Wright, get some non-statistical stuff going on.
I actually think that with how potent our forward line is, though, that you've got McGovern down there who's quick and will chase hard, and Cameron, I think he's not going to get as clean possessions as what he got against the Bulldogs.
Yeah, but he wasn't even manned. He played the whole game unmanned, and that's what I'm saying. You've got to have somebody that's dedicated to just cutting him out of the game so he doesn't have that influence.
And if we had a bull of a centre-half forward in years gone by, what the tactic would be with the loose man is to make sure that every time he goes for a mark, he's getting absolutely smashed from behind. Do you reckon JJ might do that this week?
I think Tex is probably better at it than JJ.
Yeah.
I was being kind of facetious.
I didn't bother to comment.
Yeah.
I knew that.
JJ is actually hitting...
Oh,
he's hitting backs
more
than he has before.
Come on.
So you can't... No, last year, I would agree with you. This year, he is actually contesting and going first person. He is not doing what you described, but he's still actually coming in to contest, and that's a big body that is still hitting you.
In the game where T-shirt Tommy kicked his 10 goals, Jenkins took just about a screamer. He put his foot or his knee right in the back of the head of one of the GWS defenders and just about knocked him out. That's the sort of thing that needs to be done 4 or 5 times in the first half against Heath Shaw.
They just have to make sure earn every possession.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm being facetious about JJ, but I don't give a shit who it is, whether it's Tex or McGovern or whatever. They need to make him earn it. And I think Mac is exactly right. They need a very defensive-minded player on Shaw. And if Leon Cameron tries to get a numbers mismatch down back, I think Pikey's well served to just say, I'll just keep manning you up and not allow them to have that.
Forwards.
Yeah, not allow them to have that free distributor off half-back. Just as an aside, Farty Magic and Danos, what's this 750k for JJ from Brisbane?
That's a rumour.
I saw a rumour somewhere that Brisbane's apparently offered Jenkins 750k for 5 years.
They were saying
for 5 years.
They were saying that on 5AA, but they were also saying that, and the TV was sort of backing it up, that he is still likely to sign a 4-year contract with Adelaide, which is what he wanted in the first place. But now it'll be for substantially more now than we originally offered because of the 750. Now, I was and there were a lot of us that at the time when he wanted a 4-year contract at 450, that was a bloody bargain. We should have signed him up then. And because as I said at the time, he was physically he's relatively young in football terms because he hasn't played a lot. And he can play until his early 30s. And now we'll probably have to pay like 600 or 650. So whoever's in charge there in Adelaide needs a good kick up the court, I reckon.
I wouldn't pay it.
Justin Reid, and guess what, Macca? I reckon that no matter what was being offered initially, there would have been a no from Paul Connors because this is what he does.
Yeah, I wouldn't pay it.
This is a Paul Connors special. It was. You can try and say that, Adelaide should have agreed to whatever it was at the start. I bet you that what was reported, it was more than that what Connors was asking for. And because this is what he does, he will not, his stable, whoever that he's managing, they don't get the first offer. That doesn't happen.
But apparently that wasn't an offer. That was an asking price by his manager.
Well, the sticking point was 4 years.
No, that would have been a rumour leaked by him to get the other clubs to up stuff.
No, I'm with Macca. What I heard initially was...
That's what he does.
What I heard was that it was 450 over 4 years. The club didn't want to give him 4 years because of his age, and they wanted 3. Since then, he's managed to kick some goals and play like a half-decent footballer, and all of a sudden he's worth $750,000. I'd tell him to get stuff, to be honest with you. For $750,000, he's not worth it.
Well, we won't pay that much, but I reckon we might have to pay up to 600.
Well, you'd probably pay 600 because he's a key position forward, but I wouldn't pay him a cent more, and I'd be putting some performance clauses on that 4th year if I could.
Yep, and even if you have to put performance clauses on a 5th year, just to get it over the line.
Yep.
Because if he's performing, you want to keep him anyway.
Good point, Danos.
Yep, I still think he's trade bait. I don't think he's integral to our team. I think he's a good player. I think there's good players underneath him that are coming through, and I'd be prepared to swing him out for a bloody A-grade, classy outside running midfielder, to be honest.
Look, I think we've got a very good forward line mix, and they're all different, and for that reason I'd like to keep them as they are.
How many small forwards can you play in one team, though, Macca?
You keep calling him a small forward, but he had clunked more marks this year than he has previously, and I think he'll just get better.
I wish I shared your optimism. Time will tell on that one. So what do we reckon? Any chance against the Giants this week, you guys?
Just quickly, Jenkins has only got 3 marks less than Lance Franklin this year.
Ha!
But he's not noted as an overhead marking beast either.
Come on, Phoenix. Give
No,
some
he's
credit.
not.
Go on.
Lance Franklin is not a overhead marking beast. He's not. Let's compare him to a Jack Riewoldt or
What about
Jesse
Charlie
Hogan.
Dixon? He's got one.
Yep.
He's got one more mark than Charlie Dixon.
Yep. So Charlie Dixon's having a bad year. Would you have Charlie Dixon in your team
Phoenix,
at 750?
You're going to run out full forward soon.
No. I just want a good one. Would you pay Dixon 750 over 4 years for his output?
I'm not a lunatic.
No.
All right. So why would if Jenkins is pretty much putting up the same stats? What's the difference? Like, I just think that our current demographic and what we've got underneath him in the twos, what we don't have is pacey, classy midfielders. What we do have is forward line options. We've got Menzel sitting in the twos. We've got Harry Deer we're developing. We've still got Ramsey in the twos. Mitchy McGovern's going to be better the longer he plays. Jenkins is the one that doesn't play tall, that Seagull at the back week in, week out. He had fuck all possessions against Gold Coast where he should have dominated. And I reckon he's the one that swings in the wind.
Look, I can remember...
As we said, Phoenix, he was playing a different role against the Gold Coast game. He wasn't playing deep. He was actually playing more up as the centre half forward.
Yeah,
we
so
were
he should
leaving
have got 20
McGovern further
kicks.
down.
He should have had the same sort of stats as Tommy Lynch, playing the same sort of role, but he didn't.
You have a go at the other people who aren't kicking it to him as well.
Oh, no. If Jenkins presents, they'll kick it to him, but he doesn't present.
But you just said before that we were going more through the middle. He's that outlet, the side player. That's where you have your taller players on the wing. You don't have them in the midfield.
Yeah, look, Phoenix, I can remember the days when we had Ian Perry in our forward line, and I don't want to go back to those days. I just like what we've got now.
Yeah.
I'm with Macca.
Who would you rather have? Who would you rather have, Nikki? Dion Prestia or Josh Jenkins? Who would you rather have? You only had one.
Why not both?
No,
why not both?
No, one. Assuming that we'd have to give up Jenkins for a player of the calibre of Prestia, who would you rather in this team as it stands today?
I think our forward line is a nightmare. And I think it is, I agree with Macca, it is a good mix. If you're getting rid of Jenkins, you have to bring in another tall. And the only one we've really got at the moment who could do that and come through is Harry Deer. And he's too raw still.
Yeah, he's still green.
All right. So you've got the best.
If you're bringing in Prestia, you also then have to bring in another player equivalent to probably the height and be able to give you a chop out, etc., like Jenkins does. It's not a 1-for-1 in that situation because it's the balance of the team overall.
No, I'm talking about from a trade perspective, but I'll put something else to you. When you have 40-odd inside 50s and you have 36 possessions for a match, like in the forward 50, like we did against Geelong, it doesn't matter whether we've got 10 Jason Dunstals or Gary Ablett's up forward. They're not going to get a freaking touch, are they? And I just think that we are going to have to sacrifice something at some stage to get some quality in our midfield, or else this whole forward line quality is going to be wasted. And if you have a look objectively at who our key players are up forward, the bloke who is most expendable is Josh Jenkins. The only other one is Mitch McGovern, who could potentially go back to Western Australia, but he hasn't got the value marketplace that Josh Jenkins has. And if you want to get a quality, classy midfielder into our structure, which we're going to need to take advantage of our forward line strength over the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to have to give up something. And Josh, I think, is the one that is going to have to go.
So can you explain that to all the people who are lamenting about Kerridge with Menzel? Because that was exactly the same situation we did there. And there's people whinging because Kerridge is actually playing in the AFL right now. But they kind of forget that he's playing for Carlton. Wright's getting a game for Carlton.
I mean, I think it's a different argument. The jury's out on that trade simply because Troy hasn't delivered yet, and we traded a solid, reliable midfield forward who had extreme fitness and pretty decent skills for a speculation on an absolute gun, talent-wise, with clear fitness issues and behavioural issues. So you back the club in to make that call, but the jury's well and truly out on that trade. But we're talking the whole issue with Jenkins is on structure and the nature of trading. We're not going to magically pluck a speedy midfielder out of the trade pool for nothing. And who are you going to give up? And who do people want? We've got Fremantle who need tools. We've got Brisbane who need tools. There's a couple of other Western Bulldogs will be in that mix as well. Josh Jenkins is a marketable commodity. We need a quick, classy midfielder. How do you get him?
Yeah, well, we won't get him from Freo because their guys, he's come out and said he's going to re-sign with Freo.
Neil.
And Ben Tree can get stuffed. Comparing me to Graham Corns, you can get stuffed. I'm going to kick you out of the frigging comments.
Just put him on mute because that's what Cornsey always did with me when I started winning an argument.
Oh, I've actually got an option here to block user, but I won't censor. But get stuffed anyway, Ben.
I like Ben.
Anyway, we better wrap this up because we've hit the hour and a few of us got bedtime. So what do we reckon? Gold Coast? Giants or Adelaide at home?
Well, the bookmakers have got us favourite, believe it or not, about $1.72. I think that if we do our planning correctly, because I think the Giants are probably about a 5-goal worse side away from home, and if we do our planning correctly, I think we can win the game. If we don't, if we allow Shaw to sit back there and just seagull away, then I think we'll get beaten. But also we need a really big lift from everybody that's in the midfield, and it'll be interesting to see who actually is in the midfield after that discussion about Brad Crouch, etc. But I think the game will be won and lost from our point of view. Our defence has handled their guns up there previously, but the two things that can win it for the Giants are Shaw and the way he distributes it up forward, and also they've got a very, very classy midfield, and our midfield's got to work its arse off, at least break even with it. So if we break even, I think we'll outscore them. So we can win it. Will we win it? I don't know.
For me,
you could have just said, "I don't know." Jesus.
No. He did very well there to get to the "I don't know." For me, it comes down to one matchup. Jacobs has to do well against Mumford.
Yeah, that is another matchup. I should have mentioned that. Yeah.
What do you reckon, Dennis?
I reckon the biggest concern we've got is their midfield. Even after that discussion about Shaw, Scully, Canelio, Shield,
Callum Ward.
They're playing nicely.
Their midfield has just oozes class, and we don't have anywhere near that. We're workmen compared to their high flyers. So how we can counter their midfield is the biggest question. And since our midfield has been our biggest weakness, I think this is going to be the first week that I'm going to tip against the Crows.
I think you're going to see us play behind the ball this week. I think we're almost going to concede the midfield. Certainly, I think you'll see us absorb a lot of pressure across halfback, and I think we'll have numbers across halfback. I can't if we try a shootout or a running style against the Giants, we'll get absolutely slaughtered. And hopefully, Pikey goes out to win the game, and we play a strategy that aims to block their run and to provide a bit of congestion, because they got those three tools up forward as well, Patton and Cameron and the other bloke. And if they get any sort of service into the forward line, we're history. So I think you'll find a fairly congested game. Well, I hope we'll find a fairly congested game, because I think it's the only way we've got a chance to win.
Well, yeah, and you're quite right, and it comes back to primarily the midfield. Danos was right; they've got a very, very classy midfield, and they've also got a very, very deep midfield. And you're right that we've got to make it so hard for them to get their run going. If we can do that, Talia's always done very, very, very well on Cameron, and I think we can silence their guns if we force it into more of a scramble than to let them come in with a lot of method and system. But if they come in delivering the ball as they want, then we'll get killed. But no, I'll stick my neck out and I'll say Adelaide by about 2 goals.
Nick, what do you reckon?
I'm tipping GWS because I reckon we'll match them at times, but we've been playing fairly putrid.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I would love to, like, watching that Geelong game live, it's like, you know what? We're not that far behind them and we're playing so crap. All we had to do was just pick up that little percentage and I think we could push them, but I think GWS are in a nice level. But, as has also been pointed out, they haven't played in front of a big crowd, so if we get loud at them, it's going to be interesting to see how they handle that.
And if you check their record away from home, it's nowhere near as good.
No, that's a good point.
No, it
we
hasn't
also
been.
play very well at home compared to away.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm with Vardy Magic. I think it will be a very similar type of game to the Geelong game where we just see ourselves outclassed in the midfield. And if GWS kick it anywhere near straighter than Geelong, I'm tipping a loss by 5 goals, about 30 points, I think. I don't think it'll be that close, unfortunately.
A year of little faith.
And I'm tipping Giants by less than 10 points.
I'm on my own here, but I'll stick to it. And
Macca, I'll be happy.
2 goals.
I'll be happy if you're right, mate, but, I don't think so.
But it is encouraging that the bookmakers have made us the favourite because they don't like handing over money for nothing. They don't give their money away. So in their minds, they've sat down and worked it out, and they think that we're a very good winning chance, a better winning chance than the Giants on the road. And I think that's one of the things that does give me a little bit of optimism. But I also think we're also due for a game where we actually do put our act together too.
Yeah, we are due. I don't think it'll be this week. I don't think it'll be until we see the Crouch boys back in decent form. Anyway, we better wrap it up. It's been a good, lively conversation this week. So thank you to Macca. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, pleasure. We're happy to come here. It's good fun.
Thank you, Nikki.
And we didn't officially say it, but the obviously cock-wobbling
number of the week. Let's finish with that.
Tom Jonas, it's got to be him.
I would have thought.
He wins.
Yeah, there were some other ones which would have won normally, but yeah, that's it.
Yeah, Elbows Jonas wins it this week. Daniels, thanks for returning to the fold, mate. It's good to have you back.
Thanks, Phoenix. It's been good. Cheers.
All right. And on that note, we'll leave it. We've obviously got Scorpus again on Thursday night, and then we'll be wrapping it up on Sunday as well. So thanks for your company, and we'll see you on the footy boards.
Good night, all.
Bye.